In this training, we will cover Chapter 9, Crediting Combination Foods. This training is presented by the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs, also known as ODE-CNP. We will go over the basics of combination foods, including what are combination foods, homemade combination foods, how to credit homemade combination foods, commercially prepared combination foods, and how to credit commercially prepared combination foods. After this training, we hope that you will learn the definition of combination foods and understand the ways to credit combination foods. First, what are combination foods anyway? A combination food is a food item with a mix of different ingredients. These can be foods with 2 or more meal components, or a food item with a mix of creditable and non-creditable ingredients. For example, a breaded chicken cutlet will have both grains and meat components. Hummus is another example, where it contains both chickpeas, which are creditable meat alternate or vegetable components, and also oil, tahini, and water, which are non-creditable ingredients. With combination foods, it is hard to visually determine if minimum portion sizes are met. When you look at a cup of hummus, you often do not know how much chickpeas are in each portion of hummus just by looking at it. Instead, to determine if you are meeting minimum portion sizes, you will need additional crediting information. Each combination food can credit a maximum of 3 components per item. The combination foods are divided into homemade and commercially prepared. Let's talk about homemade combination foods first. Homemade combination foods are combination food items that are prepared from multiple ingredients in a sponsor or vendor-operated kitchen. This allows the sponsor or vendor to know the ingredients and amounts of each ingredient that go into each combination food item. To document the amount that goes into each ingredient, a standardized recipe is required. A standardized recipe is one that has been tried, adapted, and retried at least 3 times and produces the same results and yield each time. A recipe standardized for CECFP will include a crediting statement showing the amount contribution to each meal component per serving. In order to credit homemade combination foods, you must have documentation that shows an accurate amount of food that can be credited for each meal component in the combination food. To do this, you must have a standardized recipe on file. It is helpful for most sponsors to use a pre-credited standardized recipe, and there are many out there on the Institution of Child Nutrition's Child Nutrition Recipe Box. However, if you do not find an already credited standardized recipe that you want to use, or if you want to credit a recipe you know that your participants enjoy, you can also create your own standardized recipe. A standardized recipe can be created the same way that you would create any other recipe by having ingredients, amounts, yields or serving sizes, and directions to make the recipe. However, the main difference is that your standardized recipe will be tried and true so that you get the same results every time when you follow all instructions. And standardized recipes must have crediting information so your kitchen staff knows if the recipe meets minimum portion size requirements or not. To get crediting information on ingredients, sponsor staff can use the Food Buying Guide's Recipe Analysis Workbook. If you are not familiar with the Food Buying Guide, this is a USDA resource for determining creditable portions for food items from all meal components. This is used for all child nutrition programs, not just the CECFP, so you can use this resource across all the child nutrition programs you operate, including the National School Lunch Program or Summer Food Service Program. The Food Buying Guide has many tools, including the food item search function that provides yield data for many different food items out in the marketplace. Yield data provides the creditable amount towards a certain food component within a food item. The Recipe Analysis Workbook is a very helpful tool for recipe makers since it pulls the yield data for the ingredients you are using and calculates crediting for each component based on all the ingredients entered. For example, if you are making a ham sandwich, the Recipe Analysis Workbook will let you know how much the tomatoes and lettuce in your sandwiches will credit for the vegetable component, how much the ham will credit for the meat component, and how much the bread will credit for the grains component. This is what the Food Buying Guide looks like after you log in. If you don't have a login, you can always try it out as a guest, but you will need to have a login to use the Recipe Analysis Workbook. The Food Item Search button is available near the top left of the page, and you can use this to search for individual ingredients. The Recipe Analysis Workbook, which is also known as the RAW, is on the right side of the page right above the image of milk. You can only click on this if you logged in. This is to determine crediting information for each component of your recipe. For more information specifically on crediting standardized recipes, check out ODE CMP's training on creating standardized recipes and using the Recipe Analysis Workbook. Now that you know how to credit homemade combination foods, let's talk a little about commercially prepared combination foods. These are combination food items that are purchased already made and can sometimes be referred to as convenience foods, frozen foods, or processed foods. Some common commercially prepared combination foods include chicken nuggets, pizza, fish sticks, breaded chicken cutlets, sausages, and turkey bacon. Because these items are not made in your kitchen, you do not know the exact amount of ingredients that are in these items and cannot determine the crediting for each meal component without additional documentation. You will need at least one of the three following items to accurately determine crediting for commercially prepared combination foods: a child nutrition label, also known as a CN label, a product formulation statement, also known as a PFS, or a standard of identity. A CN label is part of the CN labeling program, which is offered by the USDA for manufacturers to provide information on meal component crediting for their products. This is used primarily for meat and poultry products. The CN label has a crediting statement that tells the consumer what the product's contribution is to the meal pattern per serving. CN labels will have a similar format to the sample shown on the screen. It includes a CN logo with the letters CN midway on each side of the box. It also includes a product identification number that can be verified through the CN label verification report. And it includes a contribution statement telling the purchasers how much an item will contribute to the different meal components. The contribution statement will be followed with a USDA authorization statement and date of approval. CN labels are valid for at least 5 years past the date of approval, although manufacturers can request reauthorization of the CN label past the 5 years. To check if the CN label is valid, you can see the valid until date on the CN label verification report, which is available online from USDA. CN labels are mostly available through food service distributors who work with schools, although some may be found in warehouse-style stores. If your commercially prepared combination food does not have a CN label, a product formulation statement is the next best thing. This is also known as a PFS, and it's another way for manufacturers to provide information on meal pattern contributions of their food products. This is also voluntary and does not go through an approval process with USDA. In order for a PFS to be valid, it must be on a company letterhead and include the product name and code number, the serving or portion size, the list of creditable ingredients with the contribution to the meal pattern, along with calculations showing how the crediting was determined, and a signature of a company representative and a signature date. Remember to check the information provided in a PFS carefully to ensure it is complete and that the information looks accurate. There are some commercially prepared combination foods out there that have a standard of identity. These are products that are required to have certain ingredients in certain quantities in order to be called that name. For example, to be called turkey hash, a product must contain a certain amount of turkey. Standards of identity are mostly provided for meat and meat alternate items. ODECMP has compiled a list of food items with standards of identity in a handout called Commercial Combination Foods with USDA Standards of Identity. This information in this list was taken from the Food Buying Guide and is available on the ODECMP CACFP Meal Patterns page. If you don't have access to that list, you can also use the food item search tool in the Food Buying Guide and enter in your combination food product name and see if there is a listing for it. If there is, the product likely has a standard of identity. If your item has a standard of identity, you do not need a CN label or PFS to determine crediting. Instead, follow the information in the Food Buying Guide or the Standards of Identity list shown on the screen to determine minimum portion size. Now that you know how to credit both homemade and commercially prepared combination foods, let's try out a knowledge check. Martha is buying chicken nuggets from a market to serve her after-school participants. What type of combination food is this? Is it a homemade combination food or a commercially prepared combination food or none of the above? The answer is commercially prepared combination food. Because Martha did not make the chicken nuggets in her own kitchen, nor did she have a vendor make it from scratch, this is not a homemade combination food. Instead, since the product was purchased already prepared in the store, it is considered a commercially prepared combination food. Next, let's see what type of documentation Martha will need so she will know how to credit the chicken nuggets. Will she need the Food Buying Guide, a recipe analysis workbook, a standardized recipe, or a product formulation statement? And the answer is a product formulation statement. If available, a CN label would also be acceptable. Note that chicken nuggets do not have a standard of identity, so it will not be listed in the Food Buying Guide. In review, we have gone over the definition of combination foods, homemade combination foods, how to credit homemade combination foods, commercially prepared combination foods, and how to credit commercially prepared combination foods. ODE supports equity and excellence for every learner. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you for taking this training.